Previously on Insights Frontier.
And then as it relates to the customers, it almost feels like you're helping them. Sometimes you're helping them in very small ways, but other times you're helping them in really big ways. Does it affect a lot of our customers? Because then I would say then it seems like it should be prioritized.
So when you ground, change in the customer stories and conversations, what does a successful change effort look like?
So for us, this is very common across other software companies, but we also, like other software companies, think through like a center of excellence. How do we enable that customer to be successful? What are the different pillars, I guess, they need to have in place so they could successfully adopt or do their own change management internally? Because we can tell the customer, but there's still going to be a lot of internal work that they have to do to meet us halfway to be successful. So for us, those pillars consist of strategy. What are you looking to do? What are the goals? Why did you buy this? 2, what is the governance structure? Like, who are the people who are going to make this successful? For instance, like an executive sponsor who sets the vision, the program manager who maybe coordinates all the teams, the end users and their feedback and their level of adoption. 3rd, I would say, is enablement. You're doing something new. How do we train people, teach them what they need to know, and then also help them teach each other when we're not there, because we don't work within their companies, we work with them. And so having power users or super users internally to champion the product and to answer questions, and us being able to train the trainer almost, is very important. For things like support, like I mentioned with training, do they have internal people they can go to for questions? And does that then help them have more confidence in the product? Also, people internally can answer the question in a way that's through the lens of their company, maybe their policies or their way of doing things, in a way that if you just send us a support case, let's say, we may answer it through a generic lens of this is the best practice, but maybe there's a nuance within the company that isn't fully captured. So support is another element. And the last thing I would say is communication. We often have customers that are large enterprise customers, and these organizations, though well, functioning, still have a lot of teams that maybe work in silos and don't communicate with each other. And so in some ways, we almost serve as a communication layer to make sure everyone's on the same page across different teams, and then everyone's on the same page across different stakeholders, everyone from like the executive sponsor to the end user, as the information be filtered down to the appropriate audience. Oftentimes we are the ones that have to sort of create that communication plan, that cadence of who needs to know what when, and being able to sort of operationalize that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you're definitely leading to like my next question in terms of storytelling. So
Okay.
You're talking about communication and making sure it has the impact, but what role do you believe storytelling plays in helping organizations go from just general awareness about customers and their needs, to actually taking action on those customer needs?
I think storytelling accelerates everything that you're trying to do, because it helps people understand the context of what you're trying to do. And also, when you tell someone a story, their ability to have empathy and put themselves in that story also sort of accelerates their willingness to adopt, let's say, a product or move in a direction, let's say, that's led through something like change management. So an example of that is, I remember when I worked at LinkedIn, the product marketing, sales enablement teams would create these decks for us that were, this is a day in the life of a salesperson if they're using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for instance. And this is what they do. They'll check CRM, they'll check, and then being able to tell that story helped us understand where our product fit into their day to day, its importance. And that is something that could have also been communicated through maybe some stat or some information about the product, but seeing it in the workday and the hour and when they're checking CRM just made you visualize like how they would use the product, where it would fit in so much faster than anything else I could have told them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think that's a great example of how to communicate or tell this kind of stories within teams. One of the things that I've been doing more of is just sharing some of the conversations I'm having the videos, the transcripts with my team, make sure that they get the full context of the kind of conversations that I'm also having, with the market, to, have the right perspective to, as we make decisions, as we try to like move very quickly, as a business. Now, let's go back to, the leadership side of things, right? What do you think are some of the blind spots that, leaders have when it comes to acting on customer insights? What do you think they miss when they're not on the field, spending a lot of time with customers?
I think that without proper context, it's hard to know what to prioritize, because oftentimes everything is a problem, everything seems urgent. And when you don't really know the context, then it makes it really difficult to prioritize and be right in your prioritization. So there's that element. Two, we mentioned blind spots. It's understanding sort of why someone would want something. What's the motivation behind it? Is it something that is beneficial to others? Is it something that has lasting impact, where maybe you think you're solving a problem for a customer, but maybe it solves it for a whole vertical, and that's an industry solution that you've now developed as a result of that. I think is another element of it. And then I would say, by not being close to the field and understanding how the product is used, it's really hard to innovate, because it's very hard to know what's the use case. How does this serve that particular end user? What is kind of the outcome that they're getting, the value that they're getting from it? You can be very far removed from that and not understanding what to anticipate for the future that someone who is, let's say, your ideal customer would need. Evolving with their needs is equally as important as selling to them in that initial kind of like prospecting stage.
Do you think this is a problem that can be solved, like removing those blind spots?
Yes.
Or it can only be mitigated?
I don't know if it can be solved, but it can be greatly improved by people just making it a point to, I guess, interact more with the end user or the like customer that they serve. I've seen examples of CEOs who will do kind of secret shopper missions, and they'll go out and into the field, and they'll just see like how someone, and I think that opens their eyes to what's going well and what's not going well. I've even heard of training programs. I don't know if this is still the case, but I thought that at UPS, you had to start as a truck driver to be able to work your way up to leadership. And so I think that by having like very formal programs like that, you're making a statement, and you're saying within your company, if you're not focused on what's happening at the ground level, you do not have enough insight to be able to lead this company. So I think that's very powerful.
I totally agree. And so it sounds like you strongly believe that change, leveraging, customer insight is more top down than bottoms up.
I think it's both. I think from the bottom up, you have the day-to-day experience, so you're able to sort of articulate why customers would want something. And at the top down level, you can make that part of the culture. It doesn't have to just be a few heroes within within your staff that are really customer centric and listening and thinking about the business. It can be both. You can model good behavior, you can award good behavior, and then you can also display what like good behavior looks like, what it looks like to listen, to be proactive, and to kind of try to solve business problems.
Yeah, this always sounds great in, when you think about it, but in reality, there's so many things standing in the way of, this flow of information and insights, and really like championing the customer voice in the business. But what do you think are some of the like top reasons why it's not the case in many teams, or it's not as elevated as it should be?
I think there are a lot of reasons for that. Well, I think one part of it is technology, fragmentation. So for instance, there are so many different data points that you may not be aware of that exist that actually create the total understanding of the customer, but maybe product owns product analytics. Customer success is owning, let's say, some kind of survey, and then support may have a CSAT score. And so everyone has their pockets of feedback, but creating a customer 360 where you can start to integrate all of that information and create a more holistic understanding of the customer.
Yeah.
That's very important. And that's something that's very rare. I don't really see many companies that have that full level of transparency and understanding quite yet. Obviously, that seems to be changing because now you can apply potentially an AI filter over a lot of these different data points like email, like phone calls, but that's still sort of relatively new. And for security reasons, a lot of companies haven't really gone down that route quite yet. So I think that's an element of it. And I guess also there is everyone's protecting their kingdom, right? If if you have challenges within your organization, it may cast doubt on your leadership, your team, the value that your team brings. And it's unfortunate because that knowing that there's a problem gives you an opportunity to address the problem. It shouldn't be punitive where we're aware of the problem and so now it's a problem. We should actually be more willing to show where we're not doing well, and we should have the space to sort of turn things around or improve things that we think are not working as well. But the sort of the modern day culture of work has been less and less focused on like failing and figuring out, and more lately has been on like needing to get it right or feeling because of the strain of the economy, that some teams are dispensable because maybe they have issues or problems that they need to work through. But those are business problems that even if you got rid of a certain team, that problem is not necessarily going to go away anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's that challenge.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Now, when it comes to like startups, it's easy to drive change. It's just like, hey, here's what we need to do, and the entire team is running in a certain direction. But in scale ups and in some regulated, highly regulated environments like DFIN, for example, how do you think about driving change in a way that feels safe or it's not too disruptive for the teams?
That's a good question. I think I may not be the best person to answer that because I want things to move much faster than they do. I have to pack my own patience and be understanding that change management, change leadership, like you're describing, takes time. I may want to do things at a much faster rate than other people are willing to go along with me. And so that's my own issue is patience. But one thing that I've been doing is I recently started a coaching program for customer success leaders. And one of the big kind of elements of that is time management and also having a plan and saying we have limited bandwidth, limited resources, limited budget. So what can be put in the parking lot and how to carve out, let's say, a plan from year 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., or you can start to tackle those things and making time for the strategic work and not get bogged down in the business as usual every day. And having that plan and saying like, what can I knock off the list this year? And working with some patience through that, I think seems to be the most realistic way to bring change at a larger organization, because there are a lot of problems to solve potentially. They're not going to be able to solve today. You'll burn yourself out trying to do it anyway, and you probably won't do such a great job. But if you make a huge to-do list, start breaking it down, when can you realistically do this? What's the most important thing to the business to solve right now? And having patience, which is something I'm working on, I think that seems like the most realistic way to go.
That's a fantastic answer. So I think we'll wrap up on that coaching note. You talked about coaching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on coaching your team. How do you think about coaching and elevating the performance and the excellence within your team and those around you?
I think coaching is something that is subject to the person if they're willing to be coached. That's the first element is someone coachable? Do they want to be coached? I have instances in my life where I didn't want to be coached, or I wasn't ready for it, wasn't open to it. For those that are ready for it, being able to sort of work with them and give them data points on what's going well, what's not going well. Also being very subjective, like, are there things that you can pull in? Like, let's say, transcripts of calls, recordings of calls. For instance, I was on a call and I saw that the AI note taker said I'd been speaking 70% of the time. And in my mind, I was thinking that's not good because I wanted the customer to speak
more.
So for the next call, that means I need to adjust and ask more questions, try to think through what would engage the customer to speak up more. So if you have data points, that also really helps it along. And then the last thing would be for that person who gets the coaching, or even like myself when I get coaching, trying to take notes of like what I said I wanted to work on. And then over time, like, did I really address this? Has there been any improvement? Because then as I see improvement, hopefully that encourages me to want to do more coaching, to want to improve. And I see like it all actually working. And it just becomes like, what do they call it? A flywheel. One good outcome then makes you want to like kind of take off and grow in that direction.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I have more questions, but I think we can wrap it up on this note.
Okay.
It's been a great session, great time, great insights, Sandra. So thank you so much for joining, and yeah, look forward to doing another episode with you in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.